On Bonanza, Dan Blocker spent little time with his family. His son Dirk recalls this today. It's honest, a little sad, and surprisingly open after so many years. You probably see Blocker as Hoss Cartwright, the big man with a big heart. He rode into trouble with a goofy smile and a moral sense stronger than steel. But behind that smile was a man who seldom had a moment to breathe, let alone eat dinner with his kids. Dirk says that in the 60s, crowds surrounded their dad at fairs or ballparks. Hose was more than a character. He was a national treasure. Kids wanted hugs, adults wanted handshakes, and everyone wanted a photo. Dan handled it well with grace. He'd smile, sign autographs, take photos, then keep going. But that constant attention made it hard for him with his own children. He once said, "If you could go to Disneyland and enjoy the rides without being mobbed, you were lucky." Those moments were rare for him. He lived in the San Fernando Valley with his wife Dolphia and their 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. After Bonanza became popular, they expanded their home. More bedrooms, a game room, even a pool. Still, the world's attention always found a way in. Dan could have moved to Beverly Hills where other stars lived. That's what agents and producers suggested. They said the schools were better there, but Dan saw through it. Better schools often meant more expensive, more exclusive ones with wealthy parents. He was not interested in that life. If the Valley schools were good enough for ordinary kids, they were good enough for his, he told a reporter. He meant every word. Blocker was 6 feet 4 inches and weighed around 300 pounds, but he wasn't trying to act bigger than life. He simply wanted to be a good dad, one who taught right from wrong and put his kids to bed by 8. Dan and Dolphia had a strict routine. If a child wasn't asleep by 8, they were off the 8 o'clock club for a week. It sounds simple, but it worked. The kids liked the routine and feeling like they belonged. Dolphia enforced the rules, and Dan was the gentle one, the teddy bear. He called his kids a good crew, but they saw that when their father was Cartwright, he was a hero to the world. They saw him fight bandits, fall off horses, get shot in the shoulder, and wrestle grown men. To them, it was all real, not pretend. Dan told them it was just acting. It was fake, he said. Still, one daughter cried during a tough scene where Dan was shot. He was just grazed, but she rushed to check if he needed an aspirin. That shows how close they were. They didn't see an actor. They saw Dad, and that's what fans never saw. They saw the cowboy and hero, not the man who stayed up late, wondering if he missed his kids' best years. To understand that, you need to go back in time, before Hollywood, before the ranch, to Texas. Dan was born in Dalb, a small town in Bowie County. His parents, Ora and Mary Arizona Blocker, ran a tiny grocery in O'Donnell, Texas. It wasn't the kind of place that produces TV stars. Still, Dan was different. Even as a boy, he was noticeable. He was always tall for his age. By adulthood, he had grown into a giant, 300 pounds, broad-shouldered, with hands as big as dinner plates. But many missed the kind side of him. He was gentle and sweet, the type of guy who could stop a fight without making a sound. In 1940, he attended Texas Military Institute. Later, he studied at Hardin-Simmons University and Sul Ross State Teachers College. That's where he found his passion for football and drama. Yes, drama. The same man who worked as a bouncer in a rough bar also acted in plays. Sul Ross is where he earned a degree in speech and drama. His mix of physical strength and theatrical talent made him unforgettable. You couldn't ignore him. And once he started talking, you wished he hadn't. Life wasn't easy after college. Blocker served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. He didn't just do paperwork or peel potatoes, he was in the middle of the fight. As an infantryman, he fought front lines and trudged through the mud. He was a sergeant with F Company, 2nd Battalion, 179th Infantry Regiment. He saw combat, got wounded, and earned a Purple Heart. Along the way, he received many medals. The National Defense Service Medal, Korean Service Medal with 2 bronze stars, Combat Infantryman Badge, and others. He wasn't pretending to be a hero. He truly was one. After Korea, he didn't go straight to Hollywood. First, he taught English and drama in Texas, New Mexico, and later in California. He wasn't just a substitute teacher, he was a real teacher. Imagine your 6th grade teacher becoming a TV cowboy. That's how down-to-earth he was. In 1958, Dan finally moved to Los Angeles. He planned to study at UCLA or go for more school. But Hollywood had other plans for him. His first big part was a small, funny role in a Three Stooges short called Outer Space Jitters. He was billed as Dawn Blocker and played a space goon. It wasn't fancy, but it opened doors. From there, roles kept coming. He appeared in Gunsmoke, Colt .45, Sheriff of Cooches, The Rifleman, and Zorro. He mostly played tough guys or bouncers, always silent and strong. In Have Gun Will Travel, he played a thief. In Simon and City, he had a recurring role. Slowly, more people noticed him, but his breakthrough came in 1959. That's where everything changed. This is the moment where we hit the cliff. Dan got the role that would shape his career. It made him a household name. It turned him into a TV legend. It even opened his family's private world. Before we get into casting or what happened on set of Bonanza, including friendships, rivalries, and secrets Dirk might share, let's rewind. It all starts when Dan first stepped onto the stage in costume. He looked around and knew nothing would ever be the same. It begins with one name, House Cartwright. That's the role. That's the legacy. NBC decided to try something new with a Western, one about a family. They wanted action, but also heart. The story is about a father and his 3 sons living on the large Ponderosa Ranch in Nevada. Each son needed to have his own qualities. For Hose, they looked for someone big, strong, and lovable. Someone who could break up a bar fight with a hug, but also make kids laugh just by raising an eyebrow. They wanted someone who looked tough enough to wrestle a horse, but could also shed tears over a limp puppy. Dan Blocker fit that role perfectly. He walks into the casting office at 6'4", weighing over 300 pounds. But he's not loud or pushy. He's calm and friendly. His handshake is firm, yet his voice is gentle. That contrast hits the casting team immediately. They've seen tough guys, sweet guys, but rarely both in one person. That's what made Hoss special. And just like that, Dan gets the part. Over the next 13 years, he appears in 415 episodes, one of the highest for any cast member. Bonanza airs from 1959 to 1972 and becomes one of NBC's longest-running westerns at that time. It attracts tens of millions of viewers each week. People don't just watch Hose, they wait for him. They cheer when he appears and laugh when he fumbles his lines. They trust him. Here's something most don't know. Dan didn't play Hose like a typical cowboy stereotype. He carried a simple idea in his mind, kindness and doing good whenever possible. He believed friends only pass this way once. That feeling showed through, especially to kids. Over the years, Dan received hundreds of letters. One said, "I wish you were my dad." That letter had a deep effect on him. It wasn't about fame or ratings. It was about what Hoss stood for: trust, loyalty, love. That message stayed with Dan. It made every long day on set and missed family dinners seem worthwhile. Even as Bonanza gained popularity, Dan kept working outside the show. In 1963, he starred in Come Blow Your Horn with Frank Sinatra. In 1968, he played a tougher role in Lady in Cement. That character was the total opposite of Hawes, and it worked well. He could be intimidating when needed. Later, filmmaker Stanley Kubrick considered him for Dr. Strangelove to play Major T.J. King Kong. That role involved riding an atomic bomb in the final scene. But Dan's agent turned it down before he even read the script. The part was eventually played by Slim Pickens. People still wonder, what if Blocker had said yes? However, Dan had plenty of other projects. In 1968, he starred in Something for a Lonely Man. He played a blacksmith named John Killebrew who starts a new town. The story is full of heart, and fans loved it. In 1970, he changed to comedy with the Cockeyed Cowboys of Calico County. He played a shy bachelor with clumsy charm. The cast included many legends like Jim Backus, Mickey Rooney, and Jack Elam. But what surprises many most is that Dan was building his own brand. In 1963, he bought part of a restaurant chain called Bonanza Steakhouse. The angle was clear. Dan appeared as Hawes. He was in ads and at openings. His presence helped grow the business. Dan greets every person with a handshake, signs menus, and takes photos. His business grows rapidly because people trust Hoss. If Hoss says the steak is good, everyone believes him. Dan doesn't work alone. In 1964, his son Dirk appears in a commercial with him for the first time. It's a small moment, but a big one for the family. Dirk remembers it as one of his earliest memories of his dad's work. Instead of a TV or ranch, he remembers the commercial, just the two of them smiling and working together. That shows how close their bond was. You might think success would make someone arrogant, but Dan stayed humble. He never forgot his roots. He made friends on set, including a young director named Robert Ullman. They got along well. Years later, Ullman wanted Dan to star in The Long Goodbye, playing Roger Wade. But tragedy struck before filming. Dan suddenly died, and the part went to Sterling Hayden. The final film is dedicated to Dan Blocker. By then, Bonanza was near its last seasons. Viewers were changing, and TV was changing too. But Dan kept showing up. He still joked between scenes and took time for fans. He went home each night to his wife and kids in the valley. Behind his success, the steakhouse and fame, trouble grew. Dan's health began to decline. He had always been big, and his weight now became a problem. He pushed himself and continued working with a smile, but his close friends grew worried. Dirk recalls those last years, long shoots and quiet moments at home. Now, those memories take center stage. What was life really like for the Blockers outside the cameras? What finally broke the man fans believed was unstoppable? Behind the cowboy hat and smile, Dan lived a life of purpose and love. He wasn't just a TV star. He was a father, husband, and man of strong values. He married Dolphia Parker, whom he met at Sol Rose State University. Together, they raised 4 children in Los Angeles. They had 2 daughters, Dana Lynn and Deborah Lee, and 2 sons, David and Dirk. All of them felt Dan's big presence. David became a well-known Hollywood producer. In 1998, he won an Emmy for producing Don King, only in America. Dirk also pursued acting, keeping the family's name in front of the camera. Growing up, they saw how much Dan gave to his family, even as he worked hard. Dan was not flashy about his beliefs, but stood firm for them. He was a proud member of the Free Methodist Church and a Democrat. He supported California Governor Pat Brown in 1966, and later candidates Eugene McCarthy and Hubert Humphrey. Even in Hollywood, when silence would have been safer, Dan spoke out. He also loved cars. His favorite was a 1965 Chevrolet Chevelle SS with a Z16 engine. He owned a race car called the Vinegaroon, which competed in big races like the Can-Am series. Dan had a love for speed, matching his lively spirit. But nothing could stop what happened in 1972. At just 43, Dan went in for a routine gallbladder operation in Los Angeles. He never made it home. A blood clot traveled to his lungs, and he died of a pulmonary embolism on May 13, 1972. The man known as Hoss Cartwright, the gentle giant on American TV, was gone. This loss was felt not only by fans, but by everyone close to him. Bonanza faced something no show had before. It had to deal with the death of one of its stars. Hoss's passing was written into the last 14th season, but the details were never fully shown. Later, in a spin-off, a character finally said Hoss died trying to save someone. His death fit his character, selfless, brave, and quietly heroic. Still, after that, Bonanza was never the same. Attendance dropped, and the chemistry on set changed. Without Hoss, the show lost its soul. Michael Landon, who was close to Dan, once said he could always cry on cue just by thinking about him. That shows how much Dan meant. Dan was buried in Woodman Cemetery in Dalb, Texas. No fancy statue or Hollywood glamour. Just a simple headstone marked B. Dan D. Blocker next to his family. It's plain but honest, the way he would have wanted it. Yet the world still remembers him. There's a Dan Blocker room at the O'Donnell Heritage Museum in Texas. Dan Blocker Beach can be found on the California coast in Malibu. A street named Dan Blocker Avenue runs through a quiet neighborhood in Henderson, Nevada. His influence is part of the area itself. Dirk, his son, carried that legacy further. He first appeared with Dan in a 1964 car ad. Dirk was just a kid then, standing beside the man many knew as Hosson. From there, Dirk built his own acting career. He guest-starred on shows like Little House on the Prairie, The X-Files, Matlock, Walker, Texas Ranger, and Chips. Between 1976 and 1978, he played Lieutenant Jerry Bragg on Bay Black Sheep. After years of small roles, he got another main role as Detective Hitchcock on Brooklyn 999 from 2013 to 2021. But Dirk didn't stop acting. He went back to school, earned his degree, and became a teacher. In 2017, he released a children's book called Master and the Little Monk. It's a simple story that reveals a lot of emotion, much like the honest characters his father played. Now, at 67, Dirk is finally sharing the whole story, not the TV version or fan stories, but the real person behind Hose. He shows who Dan Blocker really was: father, husband, teacher, veteran, and outsider in Hollywood. Most important, Dan stayed true to himself and didn't let fame change him. When you think of Hoss Cartwright, remember more than his cowboy act. Think of the dad who made it home for bedtime stories, the war hero who never yelled but stood tall, the actor who made viewers feel safe every Sunday night, The son who, even now, holds on to those memories with pride. After all these years, Dirk is finally opening up. He wants you to see the real Dan Blocker and know the truth about a man who never lost his humanity.